and welcome to From Here with a View, a We Are the Seeds Philadelphia podcast. My name is Tylin Ogoyo, and I am your host for this episode. Our guest, Sherenté Mishitashin Harris, is a citizen of the Narragansett Indian tribe and a descendant of the House of Ninigret. Sherenté is a prominent advocate for the Two-Spirit, LGBT Native community and has fought for acceptance in the powwow circuit, a journey featured in the film Being Thunder. In recognition of this work, Sherenté was named a 2019 LGBT History Month icon. They have walked in New York Fashion Week and have been featured in the New York Times, NBC, Yahoo, and NPR. Sherenté is a 2018 presidential scholar, a 2019 TEDx speaker, and a member of the 2022 Yale-Norfolk School of Art cohort. They graduated from Brown University and the Rhode Island School of Design's 5-year dual degree program, later earning a master's in American Studies. Sherenté is currently a doctoral candidate in American Studies at Brown and is publishing their first book. Welcome, Sherenté.
Thank you, Tylin.
So let's start. You've had this wonderful, privilege of growing up in your home community, in a family that's widely known and connected. How has that shaped the path that you're on?
I say all the time that if it wasn't for my family, my circle around me, nothing that I've been able to do would have been accomplished. And so often people, especially young people, have found me and have been so inspired by whatever things I've been doing. And I always need to bring it back to my family, because the things that I've done really are nothing compared to all the work that they've done to really lift me up. I think so often in our society today, there's the norm of when a child turns 18, they move out of the house and they're on their own. And that is just so alien from my experience. When my parents were young, my mother was cleaning houses and my father was working for our tribe and was working part-time at Walmart. And I have memories of going and visiting him at the deli stand. But coming from poverty and then working to come out of that, to lift your children up to something higher. I think so many of our people have similar struggles, and it's of the utmost importance that if we want to rise up, we want the 7 generations ahead of us to be stronger, we need to be lifting up those future generations. And it's our traditional way. Roger Williams records amongst our people that our children were exceptionally spoiled. And I've always been taught that our young people are still close to that other world. And so we can lose them so easily. And so we need to cherish them. And in fact, some of my own cousins who previously were not able to dance in a style that spoke to them as a Two-Spirit person, their family has totally changed course after seeing my own parents and how they've raised us. And it's hard when it's family or someone that is doing good things and is wearing, this label that you've seen as being other. It puts a face to what otherwise would be an idea. And I think that was the biggest strength that I had behind me in affecting change, was getting people to see me and not just the idea of, someone who's confused or
right.
something along those lines.
Right. And I want to touch base on that later on. But getting back to your family, you have such a large family and you are all so connected, like the fact that you live next door to your parents and your siblings and you live with your grandmother. Can you talk about how that evolved? It's almost as if it was just an organic evolution and it wasn't something that you really even planned or gave thought to. It's just how your family system works, and it's so beautiful to see.
Yes, I now often will laugh and say, "Oh, Mama and Papa, we're rich. We are absolutely rich now compared to when I was a kid." And I see my younger siblings and, them being spoiled. And it was the greatest joy when I was able to buy the house next door to my parents with the help of my grandmother. And my grandmother is just down the hallway, and it's the greatest gift. I say that all of my best friends are my family. My bestest friends are my siblings. And there is such a strength that's cultivated in that, where, like I said before, we're always able to lift each other up. And I still, I'm saving money on groceries because I get to go next door and my parents are cooking dinner for us. And sometimes we're cooking dinner for them too. So I think that it's also been a beautiful thing in the preservation of our traditions. I even think about our tribal community, how easily the distance between us, the new housing developments that are being put up in Charlestown, Rhode Island, and throughout the state, how all of those things have made it harder for us to gather as people. But since there's so many of us kids, and my aunt is living right down the road, we're able to do so many of those things with our reservation lands right here. And it's a tremendous gift that I shouldn't take for granted ever.
It's really beautiful, and it's so evident how close you all are and how you celebrate each other and lean on each other. And I think that's unusual. I really do, to be that connected with so many people. Usually there are bonds within families that may be like a couple of siblings or, the different dynamics, but to see the entire family unit so unified and always celebrating each other is just something that's it's really moving to witness. As like on your mom posts on Facebook, and she's just the most avid poster, and it's so wonderful because she'll post and put like 75 photographs up, and and I think it's
and it won't be the photo that I told her to put up.
Right, it's her story to tell, and so
right,
it just provides a level of hope virtually, I think, to see, when you got into Brown, or, these videos of your siblings just doing beautiful work or enjoying themselves. And it feels really like aspirational, I think. And then when you're talking about moving and like having intergenerational family homes or neighborhoods and things like that, I think that's something that's really important. Like you said, like, that's your experience, but it's not our regular experience. And in fact, society is trying to move us away from all of that. And I think now a lot of people are trying to be like, no, actually, I need to be close to my family. We should build closer together, or at least be in the same city, because what is our purpose? What are we even doing here? And how do we want to live out the rest of our lives? So anyway, I just think it's really phenomenal. And I appreciate being able to share that experience through your mom's posts and your posts. I appreciate the photos that you want to put out. I think I honor that as well.
If I may, I feel as though that element you're talking about of our family being together, I think the importance of the generations that come after us and our legacy and our community as a people, that all of those ideals have been driven into me as being so important. And in fact, that was one of the things that made coming out the hardest for me. Because when we think about legacy, coming out means that, the future that myself or my parents might have imagined for me was going to be rather different. And not to say that, it's going to be totally different, but it will be unique. And many people say that the hardest person to come out to is coming out to yourself. And that absolutely was the case for me. And I remember that one of my greatest fears was, that I was going to be treated differently after I came out. And now, over a decade later, I can say that my fear was realized. I am treated very differently than I was before I came out, but for all the right reasons. And thank God I'm being treated differently, because I could not even imagine what could be. And that's something that I think about so often when we're creating arts, is the dreams of what can be. And we only can build those dreams off of, the small material that we're given as inspiration. And when our two-spirit people aren't being accepted, that gives us few kinds of paths to follow to dream those dreams.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the documentary. How did that come to be? Because that was when you're talking about coming out and your personal journey. But when the documentary was filmed, or prior to that at the powwows, there were some issues that were happening, and they were not being inclusive. And there was a lot of, what do you say, chatter around it, I don't know, or feelings around it in so many different ways. So if we can back up and talk about like your journey from your own personal understanding and how you wanted to present to the world, to then becoming very public with this situation at the powwows, and then being in a documentary where it's now on platform for the world to see. Can you take us on that a little bit?
Absolutely. I can do my best. So the documentary started filming when I was 14.
Oh,
Some of the earliest clips that were included, I was 14.
Okay.
And when it started, it wasn't originally going to be a documentary about, this two-spirit child's journey. Originally, there was the concept that it was going to be about a bunch of different Indigenous families or something along that line. And then when Stephanie Lamore, the French documentarian, met our family, she she said she fell in love and she wanted to do the story just about our family and our experience as Indigenous people. And then the story, I think different people involved in the film wanted the focus to then be more on my story. And as we were recording, we had no idea that this whole whirlwind storm would take place around dance. And of course, that time was extremely difficult. Some of the hardest moments in that were not captured on camera, especially because Stephanie was traveling back and forth from France. And so she'd only be able to come like for short amounts of time. So I'm amazed that we caught any of the things that we did.
Yeah.
But the beginning years of it, there's like no footage of. And I remember there was like a solid year where initially I was told, that I wouldn't be able to dance, or that if I did, I'd have to, get rid of my number and, stick out like a sore thumb. And I remember going out and dancing anyways, and taking that walk of shame after I was done dancing. And there was
Let's share with the audience. So after your dancing contest, then they have everybody line up. So the numbers.
They line up to be judged.
You're referencing being walk of shame, being that you weren't allowed to line up in that line. Is that what you mean? And you had to walk off, but you persisted and made sure that you were dancing regardless.
Right. And I started to be seen by some people because the Helms, they came and they offered me money. And that, for people that don't know, there's a long tradition of giveaways at powwows, and powwows have become very expensive. So one of the ways that people honor others is by giving money or putting money on a blanket or at their feet. So I persisted. I continued to dance regardless. And it did create a bit of a stir because there were judges that voiced that they were upset because this wasn't their choice. They were being told by powwow committees that they were not allowed to judge me. Instead of being told, hey, this person is two-spirit, knowing that you can judge accordingly. And I would have been fine if, I was allowed to, be treated. I think there's a moment in the film where I say, I just want to be treated like everyone else. And it was that alienation aspect that hurt so bad. And I would search for people to talk to about this, and people would, purposefully avoid me because they didn't want to engage with it. It's often said when one way of oppressing a people goes out of fashion, you find a new way. And I, of course, had heard these horror stories from my grandmother and my parents about two-spirit people in the past, everything being shut down and then like being kicked out of the circle for trying to dance in a style of the opposite sex or gender. And now, during my time, it seemed that they were trying to make it as invisible as possible, so it wouldn't create a stir with today's politics. And that was why me going out and dancing was creating the change that it did, was because they were kind of trying to make everything hush-hush, and that just kind of made me get louder and louder. And it all kind of exploded with this protest that happened where a bunch of people came out to kind of stand with me, and all of the drummers from under the drum arbor came and hugged me and shook my hand and supported me, and the arena director. And so it was this big show from the powwow community of supporting me, because for so long, many people didn't even know that it was happening because it was so quiet and under wraps. And social media kind of went in a frenzy with people posting about it, to the point that the tribal council, above the powwow committee, the tribal council of the host tribe of the powwow, came to my home and kind of apologized for what had happened. And from there, the journey's kind of continued, but we haven't made all the change that needs to be made, but massive changes have been made. It's become something that people are now thinking about, because before it was just invisible. And I have multiple cousins who were dancing as young people and then, came out and then stopped dancing. And one of those cousins now is a fabulous grass dancer. And I am over the moon proud that they are out there doing that. And at the end of the day, it was really a small group of older men that had an issue with this. Women throughout this were my champions. The other girls that I were dancing with were all my friends and supported me. So it just goes to show how easily, one person can kind of control these things. And I actually have gotten an apology from one of those people, and that really meant a lot to me. And what comes through for me when I think about those people that said bad things about me or didn't want me to dance is our people have so much that we are struggling with for hundreds of years. Almost everything they've tried to take from us. And so naturally, you are going to cling tight to what you have left, to your traditions. And there is this great fear about our traditions not being done the right way, for fear that we may lose them. And we need to remember, though, that across these 500 years of contact, the traditions that we have survived because, like living things, they have grown and evolved and changed. And so long as we are listening to our blood memory, to the beating of our hearts, the core of those traditions will always be the same. And it's not something that we need to fear for losing. And in fact, that fear might extinguish those things. So often, I see it as more than even just an LGBT issue. So often we can hear people saying, they're not doing that right. Or saying negative things about someone that is taking part in our traditions. And unintentionally, we don't realize that those things are pushing people, and not just an individual, but entire families, away from the very thing that we need, the thing that will heal us from colonization. So it's an ongoing journey of healing for all of us. And I'm so often asked questions about LGBT issues, and so often I have to take it back to, for me, these aren't just LGBT issues, they're indigenous issues. Because if my people can't heal, I can't heal.
That is also well said. Thank you so much for everything you said.
Hello, this is Zachariah Julian. Exciting news. Project Antelope is now Seeds Art Market. Seeds Art Market is an Indigenous-led online marketplace carried forward by We Are the Seeds, supporting Indigenous artists with resources and opportunities to grow on their own terms. When you support Seeds Art Market, you're strengthening Indigenous economies and helping carry Indigenous creativity forward. Seeds Art Market, created with care, rooted in community, and shared with the world.
Before we move on, I'd love for you to share with our listeners where they can see Being Thunder.
Being Thunder, I think it is available on Amazon Prime. That's the place that I think I access it through. Unfortunately, I don't have the list of all the
Yeah.
Do you have it?
So I believe that it's available on Apple and all the other different platforms, but Canopy is a platform where if you have a library card, it's on Canopy for sure. And if you have a library card, you can access Being Thunder and all kinds of other films. So that's a really great resource.
That's fabulous. And concerning Being Thunder, I often get very embarrassed seeing myself as a teenager. And I think that the most important thing I want people to know about the recording or the putting together of the film is that it is not chronological, even when it might seem like it's chronological. And an example that embarrasses me deeply is they show 1 year of August Meeting Powwow, which is the Narragansett Tribe's powwow. And they show me dancing with all of these girls. And then they go to when they announce who the winners are. And I receive third place. And someone is talking to me about, well, you had to get third place because there were only, or else it would look strange that you're not getting third place. And it sounds very different when it's a whole big group of girls, but that year of the powwow, there were only 3 dancers. So if there were only 3 dancers and I didn't get third place, it would have just opened them up to a lot of controversy. So it was little things like that, that voice inside of me wanted to like leap out and say, no, here's a disclaimer about all of that. But of course, this is a non-native woman telling our story. And I think she does a wonderful job at doing that. And it was such a gift and a privilege that she saw something in our family and in me to want to make a film about my silly life. And I look back on that time very, very fondly.
I mean, I hear you, and thank you for your vulnerability and being honest in how you feel about it, because it can be all the things. It can feel really good. It can do things to lift your life, but also you're a young person going through so much and going through your own. I mean, it's a lot to be a young person, and to do it on camera and to have people, in theaters and openings and conversations and panel discussions, that's very heavy. And it's just really wonderful that you were able to share and that you came away with it feeling like it was a positive experience, and that you understand that the filmmakers have their own job, and that you feel like you found a balance there for yourself.
I am so lucky.
You're always so positive. It's really wonderful. Can we talk about your education, which is just phenomenal? You just finished this amazing, prestigious 5-year degree, which is something that Brown and RISD offer.
Yes, their dual degree program. And that was something that in the film we didn't capture because we were so excited when I got the welcome to Brown message that we didn't scroll down to the bottom of the email. And at the bottom, we would have seen click this link. And there's another big acceptance.
Wow.
Because you need to get into both Brown and RISD separately, and then you also need to get into their dual degree program.
Incredible.
And those 5 years were extremely difficult, but rewarding. All of my other classmates, they were like telling incoming students, oh, the program, it's a lot of work, but it's not that hard. And I was telling them, don't let them lie to you. Oh, it was bad at times, very bad. But I found that the further I went, the easier it got. And I had a privilege of working with Dwayne Slick, an Indigenous artist, and his class and a couple other classes really changed me forever. I didn't think that I was really going to pursue the arts. There was no arts class in my high school. And on a whim, I don't know how it was suggested to me, but I cobbled together a portfolio, and I went to portfolio day, and we went to RISD, and my grandmother and I were so gung-ho and thinking, oh, we got this. And we had a great time and didn't even think about, what all these other students were doing or how difficult it would be to get in. But what I remember is that for each of my art pieces that I put in, I had like entire stories that went with each piece. And I think that's always been like the real driver behind any of the things that I do, is the stories. And of course, I come from a family of storytellers, so maybe that shouldn't be a surprise. But I really feel like there's a lot of healing that can come from our arts, from our stories. And when I think about my academia, I'm now in my doctoral program at Brown, and a big part of the work that I want to do is looking at what remains of our cultural aesthetics, the way that we speak, the way that our accents, the stories that we tell, the practices that we have, even the things that we think of as mundane, the hidden stories that are within that, the ways that these things, these symbols, these arts that we create can tell us things about our history. I think that so often academia can feel so disconnected from our real lives. And my grandmother tells stories about, doing school programs her whole life, and now being in her 70s, and the kids still are asking the same questions. And it feels like, what have all these decades of teaching been for? And I really feel like the answer has to be in the arts, that just education isn't enough, but we need those arts, we need those stories that people care about to get their heart invested in it and not just their mind. And yeah, I think, why should people care about Narragansett people or history if they don't have some emotional tie to it? And that's the same thing as our ceremonies. All of our ceremonies are centered around not just teaching something intellectually. I often use the example of all our beloved relations. Wami wamanagkwasuag na tang sunonag. How you can understand that all of creation is your relations. And understanding that on a cerebral level is very different from remembering the feeling of being connected with all of your relations. And that bringing you to pause before you hunt one too many deer, or bring home one too many fish, or cut down one too many trees. So that's why we have those ceremonies, so you can live the teaching and not just be taught it. And the ceremonies, of course, are all embedded in our philosophies and our arts. It's that meeting place. So that's why I love dancing. And when we dance, we're caught in deep thanksgiving and prayer and ceremony. I took us a little bit away from the school stuff at the end there, but
so beautiful, and all just so real. Thank you. So let's talk about the Drag Arts Oral History Project. You've agreed to work with We Are the Seeds, and we're in collaboration with the Drag Arts Oral History Project, and you're hosting 2 episodes of From Here with a View and interviewing 2 Indigenous drag artists, Ricky Tagaban and Landa Lakes. We're really excited that you've taken that on. You've already recorded one of the interviews. How are you feeling about them?
my conversation with Landa Lakes was incredible. Landa Lakes was a huge inspiration for me. One of the things that I say in the interview is that when I came out, one of the first things my grandmother did was show me a magazine with Landa Lakes in it. And just another reason why I'm so thankful for my family. Imagine if every young person that when they came out, they were not just told that they were accepted, but they were reminded that we have a tradition of this, that this is who we are. And to be given examples of powerful two-spirit people that have come before you. So to be able to have those conversations with Landa Lakes was truly a gift. One of the highlights of my young life was being invited to be the head lady dancer at Bates Two-Spirit Powwow, of which Landa Lakes was a part. And I remember thinking, because my parents are championship dancers, and, thinking about them under the spotlight, doing their spotlight dance, and thinking, how magical that is. But of course, that will never be me, but I can dream. And that was definitely a moment under the spotlight where I was pinching myself because I couldn't believe that this event that I'd wanted to go to for so long, I was now finally not just able to go, but I was the head lady dancer.
Incredible. So happy to have you on From Here with a View and working on this project with us. And it's just been really wonderful sharing this space with you today. So in closing, will you tell us what's next for you?
So I am currently in the process. I'm now a doctoral candidate. So I have nothing left but my dissertation for my program. And I say that like the dissertation will be the easy part. In some ways it might be. And while I'm working on that, I've also been doing language classes over Zoom for people in my tribal community. And doing that language work has been incredibly enriching and rewarding. And I think as a result, language will naturally find its way into the rest of my work. On top of that, I have been in the process of publishing 2 books. The first already is with a publisher, and it's a children's book. And the book is basically autobiographical. I was very touched when I was reached out to by Padma Venkatraman. She had the vision to do a book about my story for young people. And I was honored, and I trusted Padma, and she was so respectful and really wanted to tell this story before the film came out. Many people kind of reached out to me after the film came out and wanted to do something. She had reached out to me long before and really showed a commitment to wanting to tell the story the right way. And so that's a collaboration that is in the works. There's currently an illustrator doing the illustrations. I chose not to do the illustrations because I'm colorblind, and I thought that the book should have a lot of color. And the second book is a novel, and I finished, it's sitting right over there, the first draft of the novel, and I'm a perfectionist, so I have been writing and rewriting. But it is a story about a young person who is whisked away into, for lack of a better word, the spirit realm, and kind of goes on a visionary quest. And it deals a lot with these issues of intergenerational trauma, corruption within our own communities, but how that corruption is really just a reflection of greater colonization, and how those have impacts beyond just the human, but into our animal and plant relations. My parents have read the book, and they're a little bit biased, but I made both of them cry, so I was happy about that. That I will be sending in soon, and hopefully it will be published soon. But it is my greatest treasure right now, and so I want to make sure that it's perfect.
Congratulations. That's beautiful. And congratulations on all the incredible work you're doing. And you're just so thoughtful. And I love hearing everything you say, and how you view the world is so beautiful. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy life to share your story with our viewers and listeners. And thank you for what you do in the world.
Thank you, Tylin.
And listeners, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to this episode of From Here with a View. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. We appreciate you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of From Here with a View, a We Are the Seeds Philadelphia podcast. Please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. You'll be helping us grow our listener community and elevate the impact of our podcast. You can learn more about this podcast at wearetheseeds.org. From Here with a View. Producers are Zachariah Julian and Tyler Nagoyo. Executive producer is Michelle St. John. Sound mixing and original theme music by me, Zachariah Julian. To hear more of my music, follow me on Spotify and Apple Music. From Here with a View logo art is inspired by an original oil pastel drawing by Jason Wiesel. Graphic design by Fernanda Leon. Lead funding is provided by People's Media Fund.